Hello everybody and welcome back to another video here on the channel. And yes, as you can see, this week's video is going to be shot at a little bit of a different angle here on my desk, but what we're going to be doing for this week's video is a couple of things. This is actually going to be a video covering my brand new 2017 PC build that I've been kind of ordering and doing a lot of research on all these parts for the past couple months. And I'm finally ready to, sort of unveil this to you guys, and this video is going to be, structured in a couple of different ways. For this first segment here, I'm just going to, kind of be basically showing you guys what parts I ended up with, what I'm going to be working with this PC build. And the second and probably, the more exciting portion is going to be an actual PC build time-lapse. And I'm not sure if I'm going to actually add that on to the end of this video or if I'm going to make it its own separate video. We'll see how long that this first segment is, which I have a feeling, like with all my videos, it's probably going to be about 15 to 20 minutes long as I show you guys all these parts here. But, that's okay. But anyway, let's just get into this here. So I'm going to, slowly bring all these parts onto the camera here. I'm going to talk, hopefully very briefly about them to try not to make this video, 15 to 20 minutes long, or this first segment. But as I said, it's probably going to end up that way anyway, so, here we go. So, for the CPU, a couple of you guys are going to be a little bit surprised with what I ended up going with. Those of you who follow me on Twitter might be a little bit surprised, but I actually ended up going with the Intel Core i7 7700K. And some of you guys are probably going, what? I thought he got the AMD Ryzen 8900X, the brand new R7 high-end processor from AMD. And you would be correct. I actually did pre-order that along with an AM4 motherboard. But one of the major things that I'm actually planning on using this PC build for is gaming. And I'm also going to be doing, obviously editing all of these YouTube videos as well. But when I heard about, when I was actually able to see a lot of the benchmarks for the Ryzen processor, I was a little bit concerned with the gaming side of it. As the AMD Ryzen, the line, it's a very, amazing offering from AMD. If you guys haven't heard of it, I'm sure you have. I would highly recommend, going to, at least, considering buying AMD if you're planning on doing any sort of intense multi-threaded, work on your computer, whether that's a lot of video editing, a lot of 3D modeling, that kind of stuff. The processor is very capable for those things. For gaming, at least right now, it needs a lot of optimizations for it to work and actually compete as what I would consider on par with a 7700K. There were some benchmarks I saw, because the benchmarks were all over the place when they first came out. I'm sure, if you guys have been following the news, you would know that. Some people said that it was doing just, on par with the 7700K. Some people said it was doing, below an i5 level of performance in some games. So that made me a little bit concerned, and I kind of, debated about, should I keep the 8900X? Should I sell it? What should I do? I ended up selling it, or sending it back, and I ended up purchasing, as you can see right here again, the 7700K. Now, I did save a little bit of money doing this, and I did end up buying a couple of more parts that I would not be able to purchase if I did not sell the 8900X. Because the 8900X is about $500. The 7700K is about $350, give or take a little bit, depending on where you find it. So I was able to take that money that I had saved and invest it into a couple of pretty good products. The first one is a very premium CPU cooler. You guys may have heard of it, but it's the NH-D15 from Noctua. This box is enormous. When I got this thing in, it came in a very large shipping box, and I did not expect it to be this large, but you can see, here it is, that's it, compared to the 7700K. It's very large, because this is a very high-end cooler, but I've always had well, not on this main computer that I'm using now, but on a couple of PCs, I've always had heating issues, and cooling to me is something that you can never, really go overkill on, especially if you're planning on overclocking this thing. I don't have any plans on doing that just yet, but I may end up doing that later on into its lifespan to get a little extra performance out of this guy. So I ended up purchasing this, because of that reason, because, so it'll keep it, insanely cool now, and it'll give me a little bit of headroom for overclocking. And speaking of headroom, I purchased a 750 watt power supply, 80 plus gold certified. You can see right there at the bottom, from EVGA. I currently have a 550 watt, which would work perfectly fine with all of the parts that I ended up getting. But speaking of the whole, headroom thing, I did want to get something that would give me a little bit of room in case that I, wanted to, again, overclock this thing, or add like a more, or just, kind of add more parts to it, or maybe upgrade my, GPU in the future, which I'm probably not going to have to do for a while, because I did actually end up going with, I got to grab it over here, I did end up going with the GeForce GTX 1070 from MSI. This is the Gaming X variant. Very good card. I was originally going to go with the 1060, but I decided on spending, an extra, I think it was like $200 to $300 to get the 1070 because of its, great performance in games. I have a, couple of friends that actually use this card along with the 7700K in their builds, and they recommended this to me because they said it's a very good card. They're able to run all their games on max settings, which is something that I would like to do, and I'm sure it's going to help me out when I am rendering video. I'm sure I'm going to be able to utilize some of this GPU power. So that's pretty cool. I'm just going to set that beside there. This is one of the parts that I really wanted, and I'm glad that I was able to get it. For the motherboard, I know that I kind of skipped over this, but I ended up going with another MSI product. This is the Z270A Pro. Very good motherboard. It had 4.5 to 5 star review on Amazon and Newegg. And it's your basic Intel base motherboard. Works perfectly fine. It does have the Z270 chipset, which is going to allow me, if I want to overclock this, or overclock the 7700K, I'll be able to with this board. So those are kind of, I'm just going to kind of clear this out of the way because my camera, like the whole viewing area is kind of maxed out right now. So I'm just going to kind of move all these parts out of the way because I do have a couple of other things that I want to show you guys. So, this cooler, it's so, I thought the Hyper 212 Evo was large. This thing is enormous. So a couple of other things that I ended up going with, of course, you need to have good RAM, so I ended up going with the Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. This is 16 gigs at 3000 megahertz. Pretty good stuff from what I've heard online. A lot of people use this RAM in their builds because it's just one of those things. It just works, and that's what you definitely want with any part in your computer. Or anything for that matter. I also ended up going with one of these things. This is a very simple 3.5 to 5.25 inch drive bay adapter. This comes in black, and this will be for my case, which I will show you in a little bit here because it does not have a 3.5 inch drive bay. And I do plan on moving over the SD card reader that I did a brief little video on in my current PC rig. I plan on putting that into this case. So, I had to get one of these. This was like $4 or $5 from Newegg, and it just does what you would expect it to do. It doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. It's just obviously made of plastic, but it converts a 5.25 inch bay to a 3.5 inch bay, and it does it pretty well, I'm sure, because it had pretty good reviews online. And just one last, actually I guess two other things besides we get to the case. I'll start with this first. I did end up going with Arctic Silver 5. I grabbed some of this. This is great thermal paste. You'll hear a lot of people talk about this and use this in their builds. I've used a different product from Arctic Silver. I don't think it was Arctic Silver 5, but it was, something similar. And, it does the job perfectly well. It's able to keep your PC cool, which is always good. So I also ended up going with, I feel like I've said it like 20 times in this video, but I also purchased an SSHD. It's kind of wrapped up in here, but this is a Seagate FireCuda 2TB solid state hybrid drive, and what I plan on doing is actually cloning my current 2TB drive that has my Windows partition on it. I'm going to clone it over to here, which will allow me to get a little bit of SSD performance. I was going to go with a standard solid state drive. The problem is my Windows installation is on a 2TB drive with a bunch of other stuff on there, and I could just wipe everything off the drive to make it like below 2 terabytes, and just have the Windows partition on there. And then copy it or and then clone it to an SSD. The problem with that is I would have to purchase another hard drive to store all of the stuff that's on my current hard drive. So I just decided going against that. I had a feeling it was going to be a bunch of headaches going along that whole route. So I just thought it would be easier to purchase a solid state hybrid drive. Might not be a true solid state drive, might not get 100% solid state performance, but it's definitely going to help. And then I'll have an extra 2 terabyte drive, and I'll use that for storing files on the computer, whatever that it may be. So you guys are probably wondering what case that I went with, so I'm just going to pick up the camera here and show you. So this is it right here. This is probably not the best angle for me actually doing this, but this is a very large case. This is a full tower case, as you can see, but this is the Phanteks Enthoo Pro. Very good case. I heard a lot of great things about it. But as you can see, it's a super large case. Let me just get, let's get this RAM, put it up. You can see it is very large. This is obviously not going to fit where I have my current computer now. So I'm planning on putting it up on my desk. I think on the other side would look a little bit better. So, yeah, that is the, case that I went with. Again, the Phanteks Enthoo Pro. Seems like a very good case. So that is just going to about wrap it up for this first portion here. We are about over 15 minutes, just what I thought. We'd be over 15 minutes into this video, but so I may end up adding the actual PC build portion onto the end of this, but if not, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Be looking out for that separate video if it's not added on to this, and I just want to, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.